Hello everybody, it's Grandmama. Time for another story from a Hometown Scrapbook by Ben Weatherwax. Ralph Faulkner. Hello there. Did you ever hear the story of the Aberdeen High School athlete who was injured in a football game and went to the Olympic Games as a result of his injury? That has a queer sound to it, doesn't it? It sounds as though we've gotten the story switched somehow. But we're sticking to the facts when we tell you this one, and I'm sure that a lot of you know this one-time resident of our hometown who played in motion pictures, won the canoeing championship at the University of Washington when that was a major sport, fought his way into a place on the United States Olympic team of 1928 with a flashing saber, and laid it all to a knee injury he received on the muddy afternoon in Stewart's Field. So when Dick has said the customary words from our sponsor, we'll find the page in our scrapbook that tells the story of Ralph Faulkner, teacher of movie stars, distinguished national fencing instructor, and a colorful Hollywood figure who is recalled by many as the quarterback who failed to give the ball to Blackwell. All right, Dick, a few words from our sponsor first. In a New York dining room in the autumn of 1949, a glittering array of important figures of the world sports gathered at the banquet that climaxed the International Fencing Association annual game in the big city. To the winners of bouts went the trophies for capturing high honors in international competition. And then, when the young swordsmen had received their awards, the toastmaster turned to a special honor. It was a parchment scroll testifying to the distinguished place held in the world of foils and the contribution to fencing of one man. If you had been sitting where you could see the speaker's table, you might have said, "Why, I had no idea. He used to play baseball on the sandlots where the Aberdeen Junior High School stands today." And you would be right. You see, it was 1907 when Lopthorpe H. Faulkner moved his family to Aberdeen from Abilene, Kansas. He had taken a position as a manager of Patterson and Locke's insurance firm. One son took the position in the firm with him, and the two youngest children entered the Aberdeen school and began to make a few new friends. Ralph soon forgot the Eisenhower brothers, with whom he had fished in the streams of Kansas with, and made friends with Bumps and Stan DeLoche, who lived a block over. Olivetta found girlfriends in Zara Karshner, Josephine and Frances Payne, and Valdine Weatherwax. In high school, both of the Faulkner children were active in athletics and dramatic works, particularly Ralph. He played baseball and football, tennis, and whatever came along. And in 1909, as the high school started to organize its fourth football team in history, he turned out. He played with the scrubs of the first year, but the second year, 1909, he made a place on the first squad at quarterback. The next year, Coach Sam Moore was developing a great team. Ira Blackwell was its powerful fullback and the team's greatest scoring threat. And in the Tacoma game that year, Blackwell started a scoring march that carried the Aberdeen squad the length of the field. With 2 yards to go and the score Tacoma 0, Aberdeen 0, Faulkner surveyed the situation. Blackwell had carried the ball on nearly every play. He knew that the Tacoma players would expect him to come through again, and the quarterback fact that it was time for a deception. He called for a quarterback sneak. It failed on the last down, and the game ended. The Aberdeen crowd marched home chanting, "Give the ball to Blackwell." a few football field generals who had endured the scorn of Faulkner took for his judgment and calling to that play. But he endured it, and by what his coach called an uncanny ability to diagnose a play held down, the quarterback spotted on the state championship team, which included such others as Saltwarts, as Dunbar Pickney, Burr Gilden, and Bumps DeLoche. It was Aberdeen's first state championship. But we're a little off the subject. It was during the season that Faulkner crawled out from under the pile of players on Stewart's Field's muddy surface to find that his knee was painfully out of joint. It was set with a brace. He played through the remainder of the season, but from that day on, it was a constant source of trouble. It prevented him from playing football at the University of Washington, so he played baseball, pitching until he broke his arm. The arm was slow to regain its strength, so the doctor suggested he took up canoeing to exercise the limb. So he learned the art of what was then a major sport at the university, and he won the spring canoeing races. After college, Frank Faulkner drifted from time to time, finally ending up in New York City, where he took a crack at a new business of motion pictures. He did bit parts to begin with, but one day he was approached by a group of film producers who were about to film The Man of Glengarry and would be staged in Canada. Faulkner had been chosen for one of the leading roles in the film. It was sort of a chance that most young actors wait a lifetime for. He jumped at it. The picture had been in production for about 2 weeks when they were filming a scene on the river. It was one of those log jam scenes where the strong men of the north fight it out with the tumbling timbers over the white water. Faulkner was in the midst of action when he slipped and went down between the logs. His old football knee kicked out. So severe was the injury that he had to be hospitalized. The specialist who looked at the injury advised an immediate operation by a New York bone surgeon. It was so hot that summer in New York that the operation was performed at 3 o'clock in the morning. Faulkner came home on crutches with an iron brace on his knee. Motion pictures, athletics, the active life that he knew seemed far away now. He began to learn the insurance business from his father and brothers. The knee injury made him unfit for service when World War I came along, but as the war to end all wars came to a pause, Ralph set out for California to open an insurance and real estate office in booming Hollywood. He had no longer needed crutches, but his knee was weak. He had to favor it. A physician in the movie capital suggested that he could find a sport that would help strengthen his limb. It would provide an outlet for his athletic interest and probably help his knee heal back to normalcy. The doctor mentioned fencing, something that the Aberdeen man had never tried. The next day he was enrolling for a course with foils, and in a week he had plunged into the business of learning the foil and saber. The doctor was right. The continuous flexing of the knee necessary in thrusting and praying gave the old injury a corrective treatment. But most important, it gave the former athlete an outlet for his abundant energy. The enthusiasm that he put into learning the paddle a canoe when he was trying to correct a weak arm now went into fencing, first to strengthen the knee, and then he became more proficient and his keenest hobby. He joined the Amateur Fencing Association in Los Angeles and in county-wide matches jeweled his way to the top. And then in 1928, the United States was gathering together its brightest athletic stars to represent the nation in the Olympic Games to be held in Amsterdam, Holland. Charlie Paddock, the great sprinter, was an important name in sprints, and Steve Anderson, the University of Washington great hurdler, had tied the world's record in a qualifying race for a place on the team. Faulkner entered the tryouts for the fencing team and against the top competitors in the country won a place on the American squad. From that day on, the sport that he had learnt to strengthen his old knee injury became his greatest distinction. He met some of the world's leading competitors with the foils at the games that year and returned to America as one of the nation's first with a foil. And now, he was in a position to return to what he liked best, the dramatic arts that had been his ambition as a young man. But it was different now. He returned as a teacher and a director. Hollywood sought him to coach an era of authenticity into the scenes where flashing blades fought dramatic duels. Actors who had been cast in roles requiring knowledge of foil and saber came to be taught by Faulkner. Faulkner instructed Gloria Swanson, Ronald Colman, Douglas Fairbanks Sr., and Errol Flynn. More recently, he taught the art to Alexis Smith. Walter Abel learned his swordsmanship from Faulkner, and the scenes in countless of films where cold steel clashes in heated combat are directed by the former Grays Harbor man. He has several times directed the dueling scenes in The Three Musketeers, and the plays of Raphael Sabatini have kept him busy making Hollywood swordsmen. Sometimes he plays a part himself, as in The Man with the Iron Mask. And in Hollywood, young actors who feel the need for proficiency with a blade go first to Falcon schools, where Ralph teaches fencing and saber dueling, and his talented wife instructs in ballet and interpretive dancing. And his pupils pick up the competitive spirit from their teacher, as is evidenced by the winners each year in the International Fencing Association competition in New York, at which Faulkner-trained duelists carry off top honors. Polly Krass, the Hollywood scriptwriter turned fencing enthusiast, is one of his products. So in 1949, at the conclusion of the international meeting in New York, the organization presented to Ralph Faulkner a parchment scroll honoring his work as a distinguished teacher of fencing and paying tribute to the Aberdeen football player who hurt his knee one rainy afternoon at Stewart's Field and parlayed the injury into a top position in international sports. Thanks for listening.